Hey, and welcome back to Soaring Prophets Thursday Night Live. I have the wonderful Janel and the wonderful Patrick, who you know well. Janel, who is on the right of me, if you're looking at your screen, I guess the right, left of me. So we have worked together for a while. She is an educator. She is a history buff. She loves logic and facts. We have spent a couple of times at the bar debating vehemently, much like Patrick and I. And I can't wait till because Patrick and she have never met, and I'm looking forward to a fierce debate because they're both fierce. And she's also a history buff, much like Patrick. So I'm looking very forward to it. But we thought we'd start in a place that both Janelle and I are passionate about: education. And so education, like Janelle has had a very short career because she's like 26. But
yes, that's right.
She knows a little bit. So I was just wondering, Janelle, like, have you noticed the difference between education, like when you started first out of the gate, and now that you've been 6 years in it?
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for having me. Oddly enough, I think I'm coming up on 20 years teaching, which is, I know it is really hard to wrap my brain around. So 20 years ago, things were incredibly different. Just, it feels like, it shouldn't be as different as it is, but definitely I remember starting out, and remember they had the roller ball technology for the computers, and instead of the mouse and all of these things, and
it's called the icon computer, and
the icon, yes. So things have changed, and every single year we get something new, right? A new initiatives. I guess they're trying to keep it fresh, which is good, but I find that the technology, the fads, kind of the new initiatives, they come and they go, and they come and they go. And some of them are awesome, though. Certainly. Maybe the icon computer was not, but it got us to where we are now. I've been teaching the young children for a long time now. And I would say the last 10 years, at least, just with the little ones, and having my own little ones come along around that same time has been enlightening and interesting. I wouldn't recommend teaching kids that are the same age as your kids ever. It's not, you don't want to do that and then come home and do it again. So if I were to have ever done that over, I probably would have gone to high school and then had babies and then come back. Things are very, very different. 20 years ago, 40 years ago, when we were in school, obviously COVID threw a wrench into everything and created new challenges. But I think we're on the other side of that. Personally, James, your perspective is different because obviously what you do within the schools is more restricted by all of those things. So you must be happy to see a change in that.
It is a lot. It is a lot easier to do what I do now, for sure. You brought up some interesting point about the changes, and what I was thinking about while you were talking about that is, like, there was the do-a-tang thing where you not do-a-tang, the ditto machine, which had the ink and you smelled it for the test. So when I first started, that thing was still there. And I remember the older teachers, when the photocopiers came, they did like thousands of sheets because they were so afraid of the new technology. It was hilarious to watch. And then the icon computer was the only thing about the icon computer that I liked is it broke the mold, because everyone was afraid of bringing a computer into the school.
Are you talking about?
I remember when the first.
More or less, that was the original, the original photocopier. It came on the two-sided paper, or not two-sided, it was like two sheets, and they would imprint as you went, and then you ripped off the copies, and the blue, I don't know, ink, whatever, would make the copies. It was, it was almost like a plate, like that you would roll it through manually.
And then when you got the test,
too old.
when you got the test, you would smell it. It sounds so good.
And James, remember, I remember, and I do think that it was like this a little bit, well, maybe not when I started, but the original report cards were also the 3 copied paper. So the teacher would write on one and then rip it off, and then the ink would stain underneath, and that was the copy that they kept for the OSR.
So it was very, Pat, it was very much like, remember the old receipts that you might remember those with the MasterCards?
Yes.
Very similar to that.
Yeah.
And then you'd rip off the top copy, and then there'd be a middle copy, and then the bottom was ink.
But like, okay, so you guys did that. Like, how did you hold the bird when it would chisel into the stone?
You treated it well. You
would you have to sharpen them often?
Totally right. Yeah.
I remember, I'm old enough to remember that when I started teaching, a lot of very lovely older teachers who were retiring gave me their stockpile of goods, right? And a lot of it were those old copies of that type of thing. Yeah. And oddly, I barely use the photocopier at all anymore. Everything is digital. I mean, and again, I think that's an environmental thing that my partner and I definitely try to do in the class, is stay away from the photocopier as much as possible. But we have the technology, the whiteboards, the the dry erasers. We really don't. We try to shy away from that because it really is one use, and then that's it. So, yeah, how times have changed, right?
Yeah. Well, it was all paper, like just everything.
Every single thing that we ever had was paper. Yeah.
It was it was interesting. And now it seems like everyone's pulling with, like, even the older grades are pulling away from paper and doing most of their work online and stuff like that. And now there's to communicate with parents, you're communicating like the whole communication with parents has changed. Like, maybe explain that a little bit, like, because before you'd be mostly face to face. Right.
And I do think that, for me personally, speaking face to face or on the phone to the actual human is far better communication than what could be implied in an email, or, your sentence structure could throw the entire message off from what you wanted to say. Right. So always better to call and things like that. But
so how do you tell? When you send that email, like you're saying, the miscommunication possibility now with that, as where we can do this kind of technology's come. But like, how do you have a little conversation about their bastard child, like eating glue and shit? Like, how do you get that squared away in a concise way?
They're all lovely and learning. And you know what? I do try to think back of what I was like as a child, and having young children myself. I mean, there's slime all over my house at any given point if that was allowed. So it's, I mean, everyone gets up to mischief, I guess.
I hear
so
Wisconsin.
Your child is artistic and expressive in the classroom, and it would be helpful if maybe they did it during more appropriate times.
Yes, that's right. Negativity really doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, I've definitely been teaching long enough that, I mean, and it's I get everyone's more receptive and responds better if it's a positive message.
So what do you guys think, as educators here, what do you guys think of the new Wisconsin bill that's came in here last week about bringing back corporal punishment into classrooms?
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, that's a serious thing. Yeah. I've been
wow. Well, it's interesting because, and not really necessarily, I'm going to digress for a second. I went to teachers college in Australia, and it was a very, very different environment there. I would say like the rigidity of how educators would respond, or even parents, or I don't know. It kind of reminds me of when maybe my parents were younger. It was a very different environment, and punishments were punishments. It was kind of like back in the day. So it's interesting. What are they saying? Corporal punishment, like the ruler across the hand?
Yeah, so they like a paddle type instrument or a spanking or that sort of thing
in front of the class.
With consent from, well, so it didn't go into details, but it talked about having an ability for the teachers to physically intervene, whatever that is, with the parental consent. It's not that, you know, hey, the teacher arbitrarily is like, I'm going to beat your kid at school today. But it is a situation where if little Timmy's a little shit and your mom's like, get him.
What parent would consent to that, though? That's insane.
I'm sure there's a few kids over your career that you've been like, I might have.
Oh gosh.
I just had a flash of Janel, little Billy's being a little shit, flipping the table, and she's like running to the filing cabinet going, is he on the list? Is he on the list?
Oh, here, I thought you were talking about my child.
I said Billy. Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't do that. First, probably because
I've been, you know what? I've been really lucky. Those situations have been few and far between. It's really not something that you would see very often. And I can't imagine that physically assaulting someone is going to get your point across.
No.
You've never done it, have you?
No, I would never even.
As a guy who has been in the hustles over the years, it makes you feel really good at the end.
Oh, well, I'll take your word for it.
I have gotten my point across a few times, usually end up being best friends afterwards.
Yeah.
So sometimes that absolutely works. I'm just saying when it's a 5-year-old, maybe you shouldn't.
I can't see how that is a positive way. It's like it's so archaic. Like you're walking backwards in time it's just, I think we've established, you know, through all of the research that's been done on kids over the years, which is considerable, that, you know, even spanking a child isn't going to make them behave any better. You get to the root of it.
A question there. Okay. So we always talk, a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on Soaring Prophets and, you know, with the profiteers and that sort of thing are people, profiteers like that. Yeah. Is right.
Privateers or profiteers?
Profiteers.
Exactly. So pendulum swung from, you know, we're beating kids every day at school, you know, you're getting the strap, you're getting all that sort of thing to, well, where it's gone to now is that there is zero regard in a lot of situations for teachers. And there's a total lack of respect at times for teachers. Does this kind of bring back the even like, hey, now we have an opportunity to be like, no, you don't get to shit on us anymore. We're not going to take that. We're not beating children. We're not going back in time where we're going to, you know, abuse children, but the fear or healthy respect needs to come back into play at some point. And is this kind of an equilibrium that's coming back into play?
I don't know. Because I am with young children, I don't really experience any kind of disrespect like that. You know, they are so loving and things like that. I feel like if you have the support of the parents, then then you can't really go wrong. I don't really know what older children are like. I mean, I'm curious to see what high school learning is like. I don't know. I've been out of it for so long, and I don't really know anyone who is a high school teacher who I could ask about what that environment is like now. I would hope, you know, that because my children will be heading to high school at some point, that it hasn't gone so as far as we think the other way. And maybe that's just like this extremist, everyone thinks the worst kind of mentality.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it also depends on what the parents do. Like I have had experiences where the parent does not back the teacher and makes it evident to the child. And then the child feels more expressive to say things. But it has been my experience that punishment of that kind that you're talking about never helps. It makes things worse. Yeah. The only thing, you know what helps, Pat, when anytime I've been with someone who's like right out of there, maybe punched another kid or flipped a desk or whatever, right out of there, that you would think this is the time to slap them or hit them on the bum, walking up to them and go, hey man, today's different. What's going on? And then they just like,
it's always
they're used to someone walking in and going, I can't believe you did that. You stop that right now. Mm-hmm. But if you walk in and go, hey man, like what's going on, buddy? Like yesterday you and I were chatting, today you're flipping desks, like something's wrong. Help me out here.
A question from that though, and James, I've witnessed you de-escalate situations firsthand, from whether it's downtown having a beer at night or dealing with like really violent situations. You have an air and confidence about yourself that is able to go in and do that. I would argue that in a lot of cases, you have people that can't do the, hey, buddy, what's going on with you today? Because that desk just flew by them and they're like, ah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's a talent that you, and then there's a skill set of people that can handle that. But a lot of people freeze, right? Like, again, kind of law enforcement background myself, people freeze in situations and they don't know what to do. So when you give them an extra tool, and I'm not advocating this, like I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, but when you give them a tool where I can intervene and I don't have to worry about my job, now that becomes a situation where I can put my hands on that child and say, no, you can't fire a desk at Jane today. We're going now out into the hall. We're going to whatever. And that's how we're going to intervene with this, as opposed to, I think they like remove everyone from a classroom right now and let the kid destroy the classroom. Like, to me, as a parent, and I have a 13-year-old daughter, just turned 13, going into grade 8. I remember when she was at about grade 3, grade 4, she had an experience with one of the kids in her classroom where they did that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why is my child out in the hallway? Why Timmy throws desks around the table? And the answers weren't great coming back, right? Yeah. So that's where I'm wondering. Like, I don't believe Wisconsin is going to start abusing children tomorrow. I think that they're trying to figure out a tool to add to a tool belt. And there always has to be somebody that starts it, right? So I think it's an interesting dialogue. And I think, from you guys as educators, that's why, asking those questions. Do you think that there is something there that implies that it might give a teacher or an EA or a support staff a tool? What do you think?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think there's a reason why they got rid of those things long ago. It's I think what we really need to do is be better listeners, and maybe, I don't know, I really want to see a restoration in confidence and resilience. I really feel like and when I would say, even when I discuss like my own children, resilience is the key. What I would want them to walk away from in life is confidence and the ability to read deeper into a situation and not react, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. And so what can we do to teach that and to kind of give kids the tools that they don't need to snap, and that they can, set back, or even do like a 5-second countdown or something, and really think about why. I don't know. When I was having kids, or when I was pregnant, I would do a lot of reading, right, about how you do this. I have no idea. I've never done this before. And I read some really good books about kind of fostering more independence and giving the kids, and just that giving kids confidence to learn about themselves and to be happy in their own skin.
So what does that look like, though?
Well, so one book that I read, I don't know, this was like actually a really great book that really stuck with me. It was called Raising Bebe. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It was written from the perspective of an American woman who was raising her children in France, in Paris, and her take on how parents approach interacting with their kids, and just even from like a toddler age, giving them tools and trust that we kind of, as North Americans, we're more helicopter parents and things like that. So for instance, she would talk about how her 3-year-old was on a tricycle and on a busy street in Paris, and she sees this other woman, the Parisian woman, with the same, and the woman's walking behind, and her child's in a busy intersection approaching the lights, and she is trusting her child to stop. She's not screaming, wait, let me catch up, or anything like that. Like, she's giving that child the trust that they know enough to stop. And I put myself in that situation. If I saw my toddler approaching a busy intersection, I probably would be running after them. Right. That was the lesson that she took away, was you have to teach them to trust themselves by showing that you trust them to understand the logic and the rules and how to approach those situations. And that was something that I definitely took away as far as trying not to be a super helicopter parent and all of those situations that, I don't know. I see kids that like at a playground, right? And that's one thing that I've always really done is I always stood back. I never helped my kids climb anything or I was trying to teach them like body confidence, right? They built those things with safety in mind. There's wood chips underneath. If you fall off, you fall off. But I have found that teaching them, you know, to trust their bodies and trust themselves and not be there hovering and waiting to catch them if they fall. It's a hard thing, but I think it builds confidence in themselves and trust in themselves. And I see parents who do it at playgrounds all the time. And, you know, how is that kid ever going to learn how to do that by themselves if you're just there? And I think that little anecdote applies to everything, right? Sure. If you are always there waiting, then they're not going to trust themselves to learn how to do it.
So Janel, you obviously you experience hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students through your what is it, 54-year career now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had that experience, whereas a parent for the first time climbing on the thing, you've watched 300 children over your career and you've watched 3 fall, right? So is there something that you can pass that perspective on to parents because you've had that experience? You've had that opportunity to watch the kids that when they fall, they get up, they dust themselves off and they go, meh, everything's fine. Whereas, you know, the first time parent is like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All sorts of things. Right. So like what kind of advice would you say? Like, obviously you're saying, don't be the helicopter parent. Don't be like, give them that opportunity. Let them realize the stove's a little bit warm before you rush in there. But how do you get there? How do you get there as a first time parent when you have a young person going off maybe to school for the first time? Like we've got some audience members that I'm sure sending babies off to, whether it be junior kindergarten, maybe grade 1, those sorts of things next week. So what advice would you have for some parents out there?
Don't overthink it. Just, you know, and really kids, I don't know. Don't overthink it and don't overstress, really. Just let it happen. It's a milestone in life, and it's really important for the children to create their own experience, right? And not to have maybe that dictated for them. And I know it's really, really hard. I mean, I did it myself, right? But I really just, it's funny because you have a child who goes into kindergarten, like if one of my kids went to get into kindergarten, and all of a sudden it's grade 3 that they're going into, and all those concerns that I had when they were going into kindergarten, I look back and think, why was I even, why was I so worried about whether they could, pull up their pants on their own? It's just, time passes too quickly to have to worry about all the little things. And it is so hard not to learn or to worry about every little thing. It's so hard. Yeah. But so that's
those parents that are seeing that right now, like I've got a couple friends of mine that they have children that are going off, like again, into, the senior kindergarten, grade 1 type realm. Yeah. And like simple things is like, and I know this is, kind of, a politically charged topic more so, but like, what color backpack, what color shoes for the gender specific aspects, right? Like, to me, that is just semantics. I don't understand why we're doing that at 5 and 6 years old for these kids. But like, there's some parents that are like, my son, he'd really like this purple or pink backpack. I'm like, cool, you got a purple and pink backpack. You give a shit. Well, what if somebody says something to him? It's like,
they're not.
They don't.
No, they'll run up and go, that's the most beautiful backpack ever.
That is the beauty of young children, is that they don't.
No, right.
And really, like, the ideology and the mindset of a young child is that they're so kind of egocentric. They're not looking at what Bobby's doing. They are in their own world. They are creating their own experiences. They are not. That is actually a great point, because I think that we as adults worry so much about those little things. And I guarantee you, I have never one time ever had a student point out and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're wearing purple shoes and you're a boy. Never, not one time. They don't think that way. I think that we impose those thoughts on them. They are not, their little brains don't operate that way. That is adult thinking, right? Yeah. So I would say, don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Just enjoy it. It's so fast. And then they're big kids and they don't want to hang out with you so much. So go shopping, pick the backpacks, pick the shoes, do it all. Cause it's so fast. Yeah.
Drive across Toronto for 3 hours, right, James?
Yeah. That's only when they're teenagers and they have to have the perfect outfit.
I'm not looking forward to that at all. The teenage. Oh, my daughter already loves makeup, and she is. Yeah.
That was my Tuesday. Yeah. Off. We left Peterborough here at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. We ended up in the Toronto Premium Outlets. We went there, bombed on there. Couldn't really find a whole lot. It's like every brand you could want. I don't know. We ended up at Sherway Gardens. Traffic was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ended up all over Toronto trying to find stuff. She ended up with a hoodie.
That she could have got on Amazon?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, way cheaper.
Yeah. $55 hoodie that she could have easily got anywhere cheaper. But so with that being said, so I gave her money shopping. She went on a girls trip. So my daughter's 13. Mm-hmm. She got her first job this summer as a gymnastics coach here locally. She's trained for years, was a competitive gymnast, and her gym asked her to coach at the summer camp this summer. So long story short, she's got a shit ton of money from this summer, right?
Yeah.
She's made a ton of cash, right? Made great connections, good friends. She's the youngest by a chunk. Like the other people that are working with her, like 17, 18, 19 years old. Fantastic. The emotional maturity that I've watched develop over the last month and a half, fantastic. But when I gave her money for back to school shopping, I gave it to her about 3 weeks ago. And I said, you're going to go on this little girl shopping trip with your friends and you're going to go do the mall thing and you're going to be a big girl. But for every dollar you save on a deal, that's money in your bank account. Mm-hmm. Don't come back to me. That's what you have, right? So here's a couple $100, away you go. She won't spend any money now. If I just don't, I have all this money now.
Yeah.
She's learning the system, right? Saving, like if you don't need it, don't do it. So she's a little bit more, conservative with her dollar when she walks in the store and she's like, well, that hoodie at Aritzia was $120. And then when you go over here to like Old Navy, it looks very similar for $30.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like this brain you can see like firing going, fuck this.
It's funny. That's the one thing that I also really have always tried to do is have like financial conversations, even with my 10-year-old, constantly talking about, the taxes that you're going to pay on that and mortgage rates and interest rates and property taxes and all of these things that no one ever told me when I was young and hit me in the face when I went to buy a house and was like, what do you mean I have to pay lawyers and all of these things? So, or like credit cards. I'm talking, like I have a little sister who's turning 15 and just, like the rate of interest on credit cards. And because I remember going to university and they would just hand them out in the foyer. You could get 5 or 6 credit cards. And if no one had talked to you about your 20% interest rate on each card, then, and I had lots of friends who signed up for every one they got, maxed them out, ruined their credit. Oh no, James.
Yeah, we'll watch in and here's a visa. Like just sign here and we'll give you whatever limit you want. And then you get first is $500, so you get up to $500, and they're like, you know what, you're a good guy. We're gonna give you $1,000. You know what, you're a good guy. We're gonna give you $2,000. Next thing you know, you're $10,000 in. And you're like, I have no way of paying this. I just got out of school. So,
but I'm a good guy.
I'm a good guy still, right? And they're like, no. Now you have to start paying this minimum bill every month, and if you don't, you're going to be ruined. Yeah. So I cut up a lot of that credit card, and I didn't have a credit card until I turned 46.
Wow.
So I had one when I was 18, and the next credit card was 46 because I was so afraid of it. And it was just because I had mismanaged it. And like you said, no one told me anything about credit cards. My parents didn't have a credit card. They didn't buy a house. So I didn't have any of that fiscal knowledge. And yeah, so, but I was just, that kind of triggered that Lychee, our very favorite, I don't know what to call him. He was saying, I believe, Ford and he were saying that they're going to start putting that into our programming at school. Have you heard anything about that?
I have, and it's one of the best things that, you know, I always wish that I had had a class in high school that was just based on general economics. And I know there's economics courses, but I found it was more accounting than anything else. I really think that they need a literal, you know, force that applies knowledge for just the basic stuff. Like just, oh yeah, if you get that credit card, oh, you want to lease that car, well, here's what you need to look into. Or if you don't pay your credit card when your minimum payment is due, your credit rating drops all of those conversations and just basic mathematics to, calculate an interest rate on something, or just to show like, yeah, you do need to save that money in your bank account, because if you want to buy a car or get insurance for a car, here's what it's going to cost, right? Yeah. So I have, not to say too much on that person, but great idea.
Yeah, but you haven't heard exactly how they're going to roll it out. Like they just mentioned it, but it sometimes takes a while for them to actually put the pen to paper. But I think it would be great. Like even because I have rental properties, and I know Janel, you had rental properties too. There were people that showed up that didn't even know how the system worked, like didn't know like what's first and last. You know, you have to explain what last is, and it's like, how do you not know what last is? Yeah. You know, it would be something as simple as that, or even like sales tax. Like, there's people in this world that don't know that how to calculate their own sales tax. You know, I want to buy this $30 shirt. What's it actually going to cost? You know.
Even but that, I mean, yeah, like sales tax, some people don't have sales tax, right? Or their sales tax is different, you know? Mm-hmm. It's, again, my 15-year-old little sister, she was telling me about how because it's all about shoes right now. I'm not sure if that's your daughter, Patrick. It's all about the shoes.
So I won't allow it. It's funny. We had this exact conversation because we walked into the store and it's this wall of like Jordans. And I looked at them and I'm like, I don't get it. And she's like, yeah, but like these ones are kind of cool. Like, don't you think like these are kind of cool looking? I'm like, no, they look like skater shoes from back in the day. Like they're not like an athletic shoe at all. No. They look like a skater shoe that every kid I knew that wore a shoe that looked like that was stoned Monday to Thursday. They had a skateboard and a 6-pack of beer in their backpack. Like it's not a thing. Like it's not a thing.
Yeah, but don't get them dirty.
But don't get them dirty.
Don't get them dirty. Oh no. Well, she ordered shoes from a seller, the shoes that she wanted that she couldn't get, a seller in the States. So she had calculated how much she was going to spend, and I guess they were like $240 or something that she was spending. But she did not calculate the customs tax, or whatever the customs fees were. So it was another $90 on top of her order. And I was like, well, I guess they're yours now because you're not sending those babies back. But again, not something that is considered in that snap, like, oh, I'll get that. No problem. But
a little funny fact about that. So I owned a business for years where I imported products out of Mexico, India, China, Pakistan, all kinds of areas. And so we have, between Mexico and Canada or the United States, we have NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, right?
Who brought that?
Sorry?
Who brought us that?
That was Brian Mulrooney, a conservative.
But who changed it recently is what I was trying to get at.
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to.
So basically what it was is, so NAFTA allowed for this exchange of goods, except for shoes. Shoes. I brought in cowboy boots. It was a product line that I carried. So I had basically, well, kind of going back in my repertoire. So I was the marketing director for this big apparel organization here in Canada. So basically anything Western wear that came into Canada between like 2005, 6 and like 10, it went through us. So Tom Bata of Bata Shoes, he was able to, when they were organizing NAFTA, he said, listen, if we allow Mexico to manufacture our shoes, we're out of business. So if you want to have a shoe business here in Canada, you need to put this excise tax on everything. So then Tom Bata went to China and opened up manufacturers in China and fucking walked the other way. The shoes, and they are. It's like a 30% excise tax on footwear.
Yeah.
Everything else, you can walk across the border, free trade. But shoes is this very unique product line that they're like, Tom Bata is like, well, at the time, he was one of the richest men in Canada. So he had the opportunity to play in people's pockets and got
whatever he wanted. Yeah. And we might have had a little bit stronger prime minister back then.
Yeah. Right. It's all about the Air Jordans and the Nikes. And then I say to the kids, I'm like, who's Nike? And they don't know. So I'm like, well, you're representing something that you don't quite know anyway. But
some guy from Oregon.
Yeah. I read, I was reading something about how, or someone was telling me about Michael Jordan's deal on the Air Jordans, because Nike really was not a huge force at that point. They were trying to really break through in the industry, and he signed off on something like 30% or something of like the entire sales, them thinking that they were going to sell, you know, a couple thousand of them. And now he's just right. Because I think that deal still applies. He still gets huge kickbacks from that.
Well, Jordan, when was the last time he touched a basketball? Like he's been out of the game for 20 years almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but kids still know him.
Kids
still know him.
Oh, yeah.
But they know the fashion brand more so than they know the original guy here jamming the ball, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's interesting.
But Nike has done kind of a pretty good job of keeping him alive, like keeping him going with their commercials and their
why wouldn't they, right? The Air Jordan brand, like why would you ever want to lose that mystique? You know, you would still, and eventually he'll be too old or anything like that to.
They are so ugly.
Not a shoe guy, eh? I'm getting that feeling. So I am a shoe guy. I have several pairs. I have too many pairs, and I really like it. Like you have a specific outfit, you need a specific pair of shoes. Sometimes those shoes should be heels a little bit. Like I'm not talking about female heels. I have heels that are male, but not that it's not okay to wear female heels. You go ahead. But no, I have like a cowboy boot kind of half shoe that's kind of heels, and then sometimes you need a runner, or sometimes you need a Vans.
Because you need to be taller, James.
I need to be slightly taller, a little bit taller. Yeah.
You gotta brush that head right along the ceiling. That's how.
What I'm saying is that with heels, it doesn't just make a woman's bum look good; it makes my bum look good. I'm just saying.
Call those Lululemons.
Yeah, I can't pull off those. No. There's still too many lumps in the trunk there.
I have no bump to begin with, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Get some Lulus. It'll just perk it up.
Perk it right up. I think we should, if you guys want to see profiteers out there, you want to see Pat and some Lulus, you start liking and sharing. We get to 1,000 followers.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm safe. I got like the rate. We're probably about 8 or 9 years. I'll be 74 years old, and Lululemon's going. Fucking good.
Yeah. 1,000 followers. So you guys make it work out there. We're gonna make it happen. So we're talking about NAFTA.
10,000, and I'll run around naked. I don't know. Fuck it. But
10,000.
We're just 10,000.
That's a low ball offer.
That's low ball.
I think we got like 50. Like we've been doing this for like 3 months. Like I don't know what to tell you. So
I don't know. Maybe the naked thing. I'm gonna start promoting it on Instagram and everything. This is a whole new world.
Not just blow up.
I think that then your site would become referred to as something else. It might pop up on a different site.
There might be.
We've got the YouTube. We've got Instagram, the TikTok, and the OnlyFans.
Yes, exactly.
I'll show you my feed all day long.
Oh, yeah. Apparently that's what it's all about. Yeah.
So we were talking about NAFTA.
Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit about Trump and stuff like that. So recently.
Seamless segue. Seamless.
So recently, Trump made some changes to NAFTA. Do you know anything about that? Like, is that a topic that you could talk about, Janelle? Like,
honestly,
no.
Do you know, I used to get, I was always a reader of the newspaper. I like a paper newspaper. I still love a paper newspaper, but I was having a really difficult time getting the Examiner delivered to my house. Right. So I went online, and now that I'm online, I just don't, it's not the same. I don't go and read the paper. So I do feel like I'm out of the loop as far as that type of thing goes. Although I do remember when that came to pass with Trump, but I don't really remember what the end game was. Yeah. Tag.
Yes, Patrick.
So Donald Trump was railing against what was called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was the TPP, and that was a very strong connection between United States manufacturing and China manufacturing. And for years and years and years, we had been globalizing our supply chains around the world. And Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, had foresight enough to realize that in a globalized world, that works fantastic. However, your globalization is only as stable as the countries that support it. And the United States, not even just through Donald Trump, but even Bush and Clinton and even Bush Sr., was becoming less and less and less engaged in being the police of the world. I know that that's crazy to say, but World War I wasn't our war, we went over. World War II wasn't our war, we went over. Korea, Vietnam, those were all very intrusive, very world policing battles that the United States fought. From that, they pulled out. Afghanistan was nothing compared to what it should have been, right? If we were doing it 50 years ago. So you had a piece where the United States has pushed back from being the world police. Well, if the United States stopped being the world police, globalization as we know it ceases to operate. Okay? So what he was doing is he was re-solidifying the North and South trade agreements between Canada and Mexico and bringing offshore manufacturing back to the United States, back to Mexico, because Mexico is still going to be your cheaper labor force. And then Canada was going to be solidified as it was for the raw resources. The United States would fundamentally be more design oriented and your capital market. That's where the banking would occur. The infrastructure would be developed. And then resources from Canada, labor from Mexico, the United States benefits from that. What we're seeing right now in China is falling off the map. I don't know if you followed that at all, but like China is in a really bad position right now. Arguably, and I've been saying this for a long time about where we are geopolitically, but like China is on the brink of collapse.
Well, so didn't the Huawei CEO, was she not arrested in Canada at the behest of the United States? And then that's kind of what triggered all of our discord with Canada, was it, or with China? Was it not?
So yes and no. So the United States was the first to identify Huawei. My pronunciation would be better. They identified them as their technology, their hardware. They viewed them as the potential as a spy state. So they were able, all of TikTok. If you ever get an opportunity to read the terms and services on TikTok, every device you use on TikTok has a list of what they save. They save everything from like your pictures, your contacts, user data, all that sort of thing, but also any saved files on your phone, period. Anything you have on that phone, period. Then any computer that it's connected to. So if you plug your phone into iTunes on your Mac, it now has all the data off your Mac. And this is like Chinese technology companies, Huawei, right? were using these hardware to be able to infiltrate and potentially spy. Canada was like, they'd never do this. This is crazy. Huawei was like the Hockey Night in Canada sponsor for 2 years, right? Trump comes out and says, no, you got to be careful about this whole thing. And then a year after Trump gets out of office, Canada's like, we're not allowing Huawei to be in our infrastructure anymore. We're not allowing it. We're cutting off ties. It's like, oh, so the motherfucker was right. You guys called him a racist.
Are you advocating that he is right?
100% right. So what happened was there is that you had the arrest of her, the detention, and then the Chinese did all the shit that they did. They had a bunch of Canadians, right? Or sorry, Americans. No, Canadians. They had 2 Canadians.
They did.
And it was kind of like a you fuck me, I fuck you.
Yeah.
So the back and forth. But where we are right now with China is in a massive hole. Like we have to look at the realistic theory that in 10 years China ceases to exist the way that it sits now. And that's fucking scary. Like scary shit. So
yeah,
like we're Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, I know.
But that stuff, that's not even on the map.
Yeah.
For quite a lot of years, I remember even as like a little kid, it was all like China's going to take over the world. They're going to be the superpower. They're going to take over. And that's what everything like that I've been reading and stuff. But lately, all the political people that are in the know are like, China's not going to be there. And that's going to be a very big problem because now there's going to be a gap. There's going to be a problem because
we're
just very tied to China right now.
Well, no, but that's the thing is that so this is where we have to have appropriate planning. So the American hegemony that has been for the last 100 years, call it, right, where they've after World War I, they really became a superpower, right? When Europe was on its knees because they bombed the shit out of it, then America has the rise, and they have had the American hegemony, and they plan on continuing that. But American funded China. The United States funded through capital expenditure the rise of China. But and Janelle, I've talked about this kind of a lot. So like the profiteers, I've heard me talk about this. But China is in a demographic inversion right now, so they don't have a next generation. You were talking about educators, like millennials, right? Like I'm a millennial. The really cool thing about millennials is that we fucking exist. There's nowhere else in the world that had a millennial generation. Western cultures had a millennial generation. China doesn't have a millennial generation. India doesn't have a millennial generation. They're inverted in their demographics. So they have less. So you've got a consuming demographic at your 40 and 50-year-olds, right, that are working but are getting close to retirement. Okay. They're consuming at their peak right now. Well, there's less 40 than 50, less 30 than 40, less 20 than 30, less 10 than, right? Well, over the next 20 years, you don't have a workforce anymore.
But we're seeing that here just as far as our pension planning in advance. So, all of these major pensions have had to invest because it's the same situation. You have more people on a pension than you have actually employed to pay into the pensions.
We're very lucky here, though, in Canada, because we have the largest immigration policy anywhere in the world. Canada has opened their borders like nowhere else. Mm-hmm. And we've done it in a fairly sufficient and tactile way. So when, we hear about border issues down in the States and, racist Trump is like, we just don't want people piling into the country. Justin Trudeau, for all of his faults, he made a merit-based immigration system, right? If you want to come from India, you want to come from China, you want to come from these nations, what do you offer Canada, right? He's not a racist when he says that. But when Trump says it, because he said, hey, we don't want people pouring over our southern border, people are like, that motherfucker.
You actually are a Trump supporter. I'm getting this now. I actually thought that was not true, but now I'm saying
no. So I support what I think of as logic, right? Mm-hmm. If a plan, like there's lots of shit Trump does that is very fucked up, but there's not a president ever that has not had some really flawed policies, right? True. So I look at it and I go, if you have a media that every single day goes out for the 24-hour news cycle and bashes somebody, like nothing he says is right.
But maybe that's the crux of it, though, is the U.S. media. It's 100%. So polarized that, how can you possibly get a true idea of what's happening on any of them, because they're, and if you watch Al Jazeera, I think that you might get some sort of take on it, but you're going to watch Fox News and get one side of it, and then you're going to get CNN side. And I mean, I don't know. Anytime I really want to see what's going on in the US, I'll watch the UK news, because they'll actually talk about things that you're not going to hear otherwise. And
do you watch CBC here in Canada?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
The CBC to me over the last 10 years has become unwatchable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to listen. I'm a listener. So I like listening to CBC radio and just the snippets of things. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could sit and watch a news feed anymore and maybe that's the TikTok generation in me, like, oh, it's not going fast enough, flip, what's next? Yeah. Just give me the facts. And I guess that's all I want is the facts. I don't want the backstory. Just tell me the facts. And they're hard to come by because everybody's got an agenda. It's just ridiculous.
And with the 24-hour news cycle, they're just conjecturing of what it could be. They're constantly like, well, it could be that this happened because of this. And then they get an expert to talk about their conjecture. Well, that's not real. Let's talk about a half hour.
Go up based on the idea that's been talked about, then they're going to spin that even faster because now they're there for, it's a business, and that's all it is. It's just a business. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to get. And again, the newspaper now, that when you do buy it, it's this thin, and it's just, yeah.
And the Sunshine Girls aren't like they used to be.
I don't know. Are they not? Do they still exist? Because in today's culture, I feel like they would not.
I think they're on the back page, but they do.
Back page is right.
And they do math. I think like that.
I have not seen a Sunshine Girl in a very long time. I don't pick up the paper anymore.
No, I'm not the Sun.
Definitely, I didn't pick up the Sun when the Sun was a thing.
I know.
To lift the front page.
Oh my gosh. It was all ads. Like, it still is. It's like, if you want to buy a car, you're going to buy the Sun, because it's basically Auto Trader, but just for, car dealerships.
Naughty things.
Like, oh, really?
Naughty things.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like bad ads. How do I know?
Yeah.
Because I'm a subscriber. I'm not only a member, I'm also owner. You're totally right. So when I watch the news, I talk on the Profiteers all the time. I warn them that you're just getting your media from one side. If you're just watching this CBC, that's just one viewpoint. If you're watching Fox, it's just one viewpoint. You got to look at a bunch. And part of my looking at a bunch when I see a story, because I don't watch the news like you, but every time, once in a while, something will come on my feed that I'm like, I really need to know more information. Mm-hmm. I need a clearer picture. Then I'll start reaching out, and usually it's UK news or Australia news or something like that, because they have an outside take.
Totally,
it doesn't seem as biased, and they don't tend to conjecture on what could be. They only talk about what is, and I like that.
Yeah, I find even worse than that is when you talk to people and they'll say, oh, they'll give you some sort of fact. And you'll say, well, where did you read that? Oh, I heard it from so-and-so. So it must be true, right? And so they're getting their news secondhand, third hand from a human, and not even, like doing any research into it themselves. Yeah. And I find that it's really hard to talk to people who form their opinions based on other people's opinions, because it's this, they're easily swayed, obviously.
Also, the problem is when you challenge them on it, it's you're racist or you're whatever. It's not because they're going to fight you on fact. No. Tell me why you're right. I want to know why you're right. Don't just tell me that I am wrong because I'm a racist. Tell me why I'm right, why you're right. I want to hear that more than I want to hear, you just slander me. Like, you're not proving anything when you slander someone. You're proving that you're probably wrong. Yeah. If you can't come up with a fact to defend what your opinion is, then you're probably wrong. That's how I feel about it. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I will. But You might be right, but if you want to scream an opinion, you better know why you are going to scream that opinion. You can't be standing on the street screaming for something and not be able to say, this is why. These are the feelings I have behind it. And I think I would support, I support liberals. I support freedom of speech. I love freedom of speech. I think that everyone has a right to stand outside as long as they're not threatening physical violence or anything like that. To state an opinion, whether it's wrong or right, like whether it's a pat opinion, which is very wrong and terrible and awful, or it's opinion more and deeper in my heart, which is always right. Either way, go ahead and say it. Don't just scream it. Come out and have some facts behind it. Like, let's have a conversation where you can convince someone. Like, I don't understand why now, like especially younger people. Pat's a different kind of guy, but people like his age and younger, they'll just scream what they hear. But when you go to them, okay, explain it to me. Why are you right and I'm wrong? They're like, because I am. Like, I don't know if you've had that conversation, Janelle, but that's frustrating to me.
Are we talking about someone we both know?
No.
Maybe we're just insufferable know-it-alls, and that's just our problem.
But it is.
You could be right.
No, but in a lot of ways, that's exactly right. So again, being the millennial generation, I was at the beginning of the everyone's a winner and that your fucking opinion mattered because you have a breathing heart, right? Like you have warm air gaseous exchange. So somehow you're a fucking special unicorn. And I don't get it. I've never understood it. I like to think that I've earned a lot of shit in my life. I work really hard and I make, things happen. And then you've got all these people that go out of their way and they're just like, fuck, I deserve it. I'm like, you deserve what? You deserve a kick in the nuts, like nothing. And I think we've went through this whole era of, I blame the school board. I blame present company. I blame those people.
That's fine.
But I think that we're fostering these little bastards that come out and it's like gold star, and they need some Wisconsin in them.
No way, Jose.
Seamless segue back to Wisconsin paddling. I don't understand it, but there's a huge generation right now, and I think a lot of it is a 24-hour news feed, and I talk about that a lot. Is that if you have one thing that comes up, they hear it 40 times in a day, and therefore
it's true.
Yeah,
but it is that TikTok life. I see even with my own kids that they don't even want to watch an entire they can't even watch an entire movie because they just want to flip through it, right? They don't have the patience level for it anymore. How do
you build that? Like I see that with my daughter. Like we'll be working on a project and it'll be, hey, we're gonna watch this on how to build a deck or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's a 27-minute video, and she's like, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You're missing shit that is really important. Like, if this is level, we roll off the deck in the morning, right? So stop fucking fast forwarding. But how do you do that? How do you train them not to? How do you?
It's too late.
Really, eh?
I think so. This is how take them to the woods, take all technology away from them. And that's the only way I can foresee that you could possibly change that.
Want to buy a 13-year-old? She's got some money.
No, I'm going to have one here in a few years and that will be enough.
But I think Janelle's absolutely right. Like I did that with my kids. So my kids, they kind of grew into the technology because there wasn't much technology when they were younger. Because I was poor and also technology was fairly new. But as technology grew, I put in the day non-technology times where we'd go for a hike or we'd go to the park, go camping for a couple of days where it's like, you can't have technology because back then you didn't have Wi-Fi in the middle of the forest, which for some reason now we do. I don't know why when you're standing beside a tree in a lake, you need to know, watch TikTok. Yeah, I don't know why you need that, but apparently you do. But we were talking about everyone's a winner. And that kind of hit education there for a bit where there was like a no-fail policy. What do you think about that?
I think that was in high school, right? Where I don't know, I never really, just because of the job that I do, I never really heard about it much. So how was that you actually could not fail?
Oh,
It was, yeah, it was, you could fail, but it was a procedure. So the teacher would have to go to the parent and show the reason why they should, and the parent would have to sign off on it. That's my understanding. I've never done it. It's just like what I've heard happen. So if the parent, the teacher, and the administrators all like agreed, they would hold them back a year. I don't know of it ever happening.
I had buddies going through high school that were like fantastic athletes. Names will be omitted, but fantastic athletes. And grade 12 hadn't passed the grade 10 literacy test. Couldn't fucking read, couldn't nothing. University scholarships for their sports. And we're all looking around like, what'd you get on your SATs? And it was like a 740. The guy got like a 740. Couldn't pass the fucking literacy test for his life.
740. So it's about 1,400, right? The SATs, and he got half of that. That's a pass.
I think you get like 400 for putting your name on it.
Oh, you must. Or
right?
Maybe they had, yeah.
But how much money did he make the school? That's what's important.
Oh, yeah, made a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the thing. When he goes down to the States and he has the opportunity, and I'm, this is not just one specific person. Like, I've got family down in the States. I played fairly decent athletics here in Canada, and we would have these processes where it'd be like, I went down for like a couple of scout combines down in the States, and the teams, we were like rep teams. And they're like, hey, listen, we'll come up to Canada. You come down here. We'll do a home and away series. Your gate, like your seat gate intake for the cash, that'll pay for our trip. Ours will pay for your trip. We'll have a good time, make time out of it. And we're like looking around, we're like, what do you mean? What do you mean like seat gate? They're like, oh, I don't know. Like, how many people do you get to your game? Like, you're charging the money, like that'll pay for our trip. We're like, we get like 9 girlfriends and like 4 dads. And we're like, no, we get like 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Night.
Yeah. Yeah.
For like high school sports.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy. It's a different realm, right? So now taking it to the university level, you've got 120,000 person stadium, and they've just negotiated these image and likeness contracts where some of these new athletes are making $5 and $10 million deals with a heating and cooling company.
Look at Shaq.
Right.
He makes money off of everything.
Right.
Why wouldn't you?
When all of those kids were going through, so this is a brand new thing. This year is the first year. So it's this image and likeness contract. So for years and years and years, if you could go to a university in the States, they made all of the money. You got your education. So the first year where these student athletes are allowed to benefit off of their image and likeness.
Okay.
So if the school goes out and you've got Steve Smith and he's the top quarterback in the nation,
right?
He's going to go to the University of Alabama on a football scholarship. Well, the University of Alabama now has to pay him through his management piece for any pictures, any photography, anything that they use to promote him. Well, it's millions of dollars these schools make. And now they're paying it back to these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be
being 16 and be handed a couple of $1 million.
Yeah. But also, what's the shelf life on those guys? They have to expect that, get an injury, and then that's it for them. So thank God they have that in the bank.
Shelf life. If you gave me $1 million at 16, man, and I have no parental rules, and are you kidding me? I'd be dead in a week. I'd be in Tijuana. Like, just I'm telling you right now, it's not a good idea. I hope they have financial advisors.
Yes. I believe that you have an agent that would be managing you, is how this works, right?
So the agent is who's making the money.
Yeah.
Much like the music industry.
Yeah. Right? They take all of it, and then you get whatever's left of the less than all of it.
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting. You're having, so Deion Sanders was he was a professional NFL football player, and he started this like rinky dinky fucking university football team in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden they are like one of the top football schools in the nation, because he's like, listen, I'm going to show you guys how to get the best contracts and the best money. We're going to go up against the best schools. He's going to take it. It's going to take us a couple of years to get it all fleshed out in all our positions. But he brought like the number one prospect wide receiver. He's brought all these guys. He's like, I'm going to guarantee you this contract. This money is going to be there for you. So it becomes, it takes this pro level of sports and it drops it down to what should be non-professional sports. It's going to be an interesting situation, but yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. Well, Janelle, you have been lovely. I don't know that I was really hoping that I could stir up the pot and, like, how you put two bees in a little jar and you shake it. I tried a couple of times.
I know.
Pleasant to some people.
I'm a great deflector.
I think possibly I'm going to just have to get you in a bar and I'll just film it and without you guys knowing, and then I'll see it because I just know who both you are and I just know that it'll be started. But it's still such an enjoyable conversation. Thank you very much for taking time out of your Thursday for us. I know you're busy. You got school to prepare for and your kids to prepare for school and everything, and you really helped us out here. I really enjoyed our chat. So at the end of every, like you probably saw when you watched Amelia's, maybe you didn't get to that, you mentioned it's a little long. We at the end, so Pat and I both have like these little sayings, these little phrases that kind of define our role in Soaring Prophets. So what we do at the end of every live is we go through the goodbyes and then we say our little saying, which is like a couple of words that define us. So I do mine, Pat does his, and then Janelle, you do yours. And it can be like anything at all, just something that it can be inspirational. It can be non-inspirational. We've had people, we've never been disappointed, let's say. Sometimes we're shocked, but we're never disappointed. So, Profiteers out there, thank you very much for joining us again on a Thursday night. Next week, I have my good friend Wendy, author. She also works in the welfare system. It's going to be a great conversation. I can't wait for you to join us. And thank you so much, Janelle, for joining us. And thank you very much. And let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together, people.
Janelle, thanks again. I appreciate it, honey. It was a pleasure meeting you. I'm sure we will have this once or twice before this is all said and done. I appreciate you coming on here tonight. Folks, again, check us out. We got another live that's coming out tomorrow. I don't know exactly what time James is going to be throwing out. 11 o'clock. Check it out there. Talking about kind of the housing market and some of the real estate or housing.
It was housing. We were looking at the mapping of housing and the way the prices were dropping.
So yeah, so that'll be there tomorrow at 11. Check it out. Like, subscribe, and share. Send it to anyone you know that would be interested. And as always, folks, let's make some money together. Now, Janelle, on the hot seat.
Well, thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed myself. And keep on keeping on.
That's perfect.